Now, understanding Boolean expressions and how we can store Boolean values in variables is essential, because they are the building blocks of conditional statements. So hopefully you've followed along so far in the prior videos. Now, the wonderful thing about Python is its simple syntax. In fact, it near enough reads as it would in English. So let's see a simple example of a conditional statement written in Python. So I'm first going to create a variable called it_is_cold, and I'm going to assign this the value true. So here we've created a Boolean variable because we've stored a Boolean value in it. We can then write a conditional statement. So let's put if, then a space, and then it_is_cold. We can then put a colon. After this colon, we'll simply press return and then put print, and inside the brackets, we'll put the string wear a coat. Now there are some key observations to take away from this statement. Firstly, you'll notice we've used the keyword if. Now this is what starts a conditional statement. After the keyword if, we then place a Boolean expression or a Boolean variable. Now the expectation here would be that the value true or false would be assigned to the variable name it is cold. Now saying this in English, it would be if it is cold, then wear a coat. But in Python, you'll notice that instead of putting the word then, we use a colon. So it is the colon that tells the computer that if the condition that precedes it is true, then whatever comes next is what should be executed. If it is false, then what comes next shouldn't be executed. So when we run this code, you can see we get wear a coat printed to the screen. This is because we've previously included a Boolean value of true in this variable. So because this statement evaluates to true, we therefore execute the code. So let's now take a look at some more conditional statements that relate to real-world cases. Let's say we're working for Netflix, and we've been tasked with writing a program that checks if the member is of the appropriate age when clicking on an 18 rated movie. We could write something like the following. If age is less than 18, then a colon, we will then print, you are not old enough to watch this movie. So if above this code we create a variable called age and have this equal to 15, you can see that when we run the conditional statement, we print you are not old enough to watch this movie to the screen. If we change the age variable to contain the value 21, you can see that when we run the conditional statement, we don't return anything. Now often, the conditions you want to check in your conditional statement will require more than one Boolean expression. Now in these cases, you can build larger Boolean expressions by using Boolean operators. And these operators, also known as logical operators, combine smaller Boolean expressions into a larger Boolean expression. And there are three Boolean operators that we'll cover. We can use the keyword and, we can use the keyword or, and we can use the keyword not. Now in the examples we've covered so far, we've written a single conditional statement where a value is compared to another value. So we have if age is less than 18, then execute this code. Now we can have multiple conditions that we want to be assessed in order to determine if a statement is true or not. So for example, in our daily lives, we may say, if it is cold and it is raining, then wear a coat and take an umbrella. Only when it is both cold and it is raining will we wear a coat and take an umbrella. Now in code, we can combine conditions in the following way. So let's say we wanted to check numeric calculations. If we put 1 plus 1 is the same as 2, we know this will evaluate to true. But if after this expression we put the keyword and then add a second expression which is 2 plus 2 is the same as 4, when we run this, we also return true, because both Boolean expressions on either side of the AND keyword evaluate to true. Now if I were to put 1 is greater than 2, and 1 does not equal 2, You can see here we bring back false. Now we bring back false because both of these expressions do not evaluate to true. The second one does, as 1 does not equal 2, but the first expression does not equal true because 1 is not greater than 2. So because both do not evaluate to true, we bring back false. So another example, we could put 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 10 is less than 1. Hopefully you've already come to the conclusion that this will bring back false, as we know 10 is not less than 1, so because one of the conditions evaluates to false, we bring back false. Now we don't just have to include numeric calculations, we could put, for example, true and it _is _cold. Now if we think about this for a second, the first value is true, so that evaluates to true, and the second expression, which is a Boolean variable, contains the value true. So when we run this, we're going to obtain the value true because both conditions on either side of the AND operator evaluate to true. So seeing as we are either putting a Boolean expression, which returns a true or false value, or putting a Boolean variable, which in itself is a true or false value, both of the conditions need to be true in order for the entire statement to evaluate to true. If one of the Booleans is false, we will return false. So the keyword AND requires both to be true. Whereas if we only need one of the conditions to evaluate to true, we can use the OR statement. So as an example, we could put true or 1 is the same as 2. Now seeing as 1 is not the same as 2, this expression would evaluate to false. But because we're including true as the first value, this expression in its entirety would evaluate to true. If we were to put 1 minus 1 is the same as 0, or 2 plus 2 equals 3, then this will also return true because the first expression evaluates to true. And finally, if we were to put 1 is the same as 2, or 2 is the same as 3, then this will obviously return false because neither of these expressions evaluate to true. So you can use the OR keyword when you only need one of the conditions to evaluate to true. Now the final Boolean operator we will cover is the keyword NOT. And this operator is very straightforward. When applied to any Boolean expression, it simply reverses the Boolean value. So if we have a true statement and apply a NOT operator, we get false returned. So if we put 1 plus 1 is the same as 2, if I run this, we return true. But if I precede this with the keyword NOT, we change this to false. So key takeaways from this video, we use the if statement to start a conditional statement. We then put a single condition or multiple conditions using the Boolean operators such as AND and OR that we might want to be assessed. If the condition or conditions evaluate to true, then Python will execute the code after the colon. In the next video, we're going to see how we can include multiple conditional statements that give us more flexibility and control over the flow of our program.